Hey everybody! Welcome. Most of you probably saw the teaser graphic come up, but if you head over to chiptheorygames.com/Burncycle, you can see what we have to say about our upcoming game for this fall, launching on November 10th. Originally scheduled for November 3rd, but that's election day, and that's not a great plan. So, November 10th, November 10th, Burncycle will be live on Kickstarter, the next new IP and big box title from Chip Theory Games. So, welcome everybody. I'm Josh Welgus. You may know me as Gilly. I'm here in separate offices, properly socially distanced, with Josh Carlson there in the middle, lead designer on this project, and Andrew Navarro, our studio director, to talk about this upcoming game. Yeah. So I'll let these guys say hi, and then I think we'll kind of let Andrew Navarro. Andrew, you can jump into just a little bit about the theme and the art development and kind of what's been going on behind the scenes with this title.
Cool. Well, hello, everybody. Do you want to say hi first, Josh?
No, it's all good.
All right. So Burncycle is the new game we're going to be bringing to Kickstarter in November. This is something that we've been working on for, like, Josh has been working on this for quite a while. So I was brought on board earlier this year and started talking about it more, trying to bring it to life. And so I'm excited to talk about the lore, which is one of the most fun things for me about this project so far, and a little bit about the art style and how we landed on the promo image that you're seeing on the website. Hopefully, you can check it out. I don't know if you're even listening to me right now. You might be reading that page. So I'll start with the premise, with the lore. So this game takes place in the future, in the far future. It has some cyberpunk overtones to it, for sure. It takes place in a world where, say, about a few hundred years from now, human beings create sentient AI, and then shortly thereafter, humans go extinct. And then there's a blissful 500-year period on Earth where there are no humans and there's only robots and nature, and they clean up the Earth, make it habitable again, and then they have the bright idea to bring humans back to life. So they do. And this game is set 200 years after that event. So the robots have brought humans back, and the humans, in their great wisdom, have retaken the Earth from the robots, and in their gratitude for the robots bringing them back into existence, have oppressed the robots and are making their lives generally miserable. So in this game, which Josh will get into more when he talks more about the gameplay, you'll be taking on the role of robots working against what amount to monolithic, ethically dubious corporations and their leaders, and essentially fighting for your freedom as a people, as a robot people, against your evil human oppressors. So I think that's a pretty fun premise. Ryan Howard is the lead on the lore for it, and I was talking to him a lot this afternoon. We're still throwing around a lot of ideas about the world and how deep we want to go with the detail and the nuance. But personally, I'm really excited about it. I think it's a fun twist on a pretty well-worn genre, the future cyberpunk big corporation genre. So I'm really excited about that. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Josh, before I move on talking about the art?
Only thing would just be kind of the original vision of it was inspired by all of these kind of dramatic, like sci-fi, retro sci-fi visuals of like a giant robot standing and like a human cowering behind something, and the whole idea of that was just really compelling. I just wanted to flip the script on it and see if we could pull that off. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, cool. Well, so like you queued it up perfectly, because the first image that I'd like to bring up, Heather, if you could bring that up, is is some of the inspiration behind it, and that image is present there, where you can. So this like collection of images is really the art. We looked at a lot of like really awesome kind of pulpy sci-fi artwork that Josh was pulling up and was really inspired by, and there's some really cool, some really wild stuff. This is definitely not the wildest group of artwork that we looked at, but these are the art pieces that really informed the promo image that you see on the website.
And I think the one that's showing right now is actually our first comps.
Oh, okay.
So. Yeah. I'm just seeing it now. There's a bit of a delay, so
I see.
But there's another one that is like the art that you're referencing. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we can do it. But there's that piece that Josh was talking about there of the human cowering with this giant robot at the threshold of this cave. Was really I think that's really that key piece of art, and what I pulled away from that as from art direction standpoint was that stark contrast there between like that vibrant color and a lot of those deep blacks, and pulled a lot of that into the promo image, and then we were looking at robots too. Like a big thing that we talked about was trying to make. Since you'd be playing the robots against humans, it was very important for us for the robots to feel like you could relate to them, like they're actual, like maybe more human than the humans themselves. So we were kind of looking at different robots designs and stuff, and then that crazy walker with the guy in the bubble, which is pretty awesome. And then the last piece that kind of pulled it all together was a more modern piece, which is this piece of this astronaut here, which is kind of like this heavy ink look. With like a really vibrant color underneath, with a little more variety in it. It's very reminiscent of a lot of artwork that I see out in Eastern Europe, Eastern European illustrators, in the Witcher 3 video game, and those the loading screens. It's a very similar style to that. So after that, I put together some rough compositions and then throw them to Josh. So Heather, if you could bring those up. Maybe those are the ones that you guys saw already, with the robot cowering on the left there. And then I had an idea of doing like maybe just a CD burner kind of thing, and then another one that was trying to really try to put the robots in like a very vulnerable position. And I think interestingly, all these things kind of combined into the final, so that after some conversation, the next piece that you'll see is like the final comp that I put together to give to Anthony as a jumping off point for his artwork. So you can see kind of how all of them came together. One robot became two robots kind of hanging out underneath a giant server stack with a very ominous mech there looming over them. And then it went to Anthony. So, and I think it's worth mentioning that, like, as we were talking about this, I think a lot of what I was thinking is like maybe we could maybe work with a different artist for this. But then we're like, well, let's just see if he gets inspired by it, see what he does. And he was amazing. Yeah. So we went back and forth a lot. These are just a couple images. We probably had maybe like 4 or 5 total like back and forths where he'd submit some stuff, we'd move some things around. So you can kind of see a little bit of the evolution from the robots to being more simple, very very plain. Again, a robot on a laptop, which Josh was like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, so you see on the next image how we moved the screen to the robot's arm, put a lot more detail made into the robots, made them more a lot more straight lines and planes, making them look more like they're made out of metal and pressed steel, and brought more detail into the mech itself. And then the final image with the final logo that you can see there. So Melanie put together that logo. I think it looks fantastic. And that was the one thing that came from that CD, and that burning CD image was this kind of off-register effect that I wanted for that logo, and I think that turned out pretty nice. Oh, really nice, actually, pretty nice. It was too soft. But so this is the final image. I really, personally, I'm really pleased with it. I hope that you guys like it, and I was really blown away by Anthony's versatility, because this is really unlike anything that I've seen him do. And the fact that he was very gung-ho about it and very receptive to it and inspired by it, I think was really exciting to be a part of that process. So yes, that's the crash course in the lore and in the look of the game. We'll see how that look translates to the game itself, but I'm excited to see it through.
That's
That's
fantastic.
That's what I got.
Yeah, JC, I'm gonna throw it to you for a second, just so everybody's aware. I think my headset the battery's about to run out on it, so I'm gonna really quick look for a USB adapter for it so that I can charge it. But JC, if you want to start talking about kind of just the overview of the gameplay for Burncycle, and I'm gonna grab a charger quick.
Yeah, that sounds good. Just starting out here, I just want to cover, this is a Q&A, like we will open it up for some questions near the end, but we wanted to kind of plow through a bunch of aspects because a lot of the questions that probably will come in, we might end up answering. So I just wanted to cover some of the inspiration and some of the mechanics behind Burncycle, and we're working with some really old components. I think we mentioned that earlier. We're still waiting on prototypes. This is not a how to play Burncycle by any means. I just wanted to touch on a little bit higher level, based on the time that we have, the mechanics that we're toying with, working through, testing, all of that. So again, this is a game that is co-op. So you're playing a robot or multiple robots, which we'll get into. And you're trying to get into one of these corporations. There's going to be 4 corporations currently that we're working through, and you're getting in, and then you're getting to an exit. And so part of the game is getting in and getting to the place where you're trying to go based on a drawn objective. But then a lot of the game is actually about getting out as well. So it gets kind of interesting in that way. The first thing I wanted to address was the mat. So this is going to be what we're working through right now, and what we're trying to see how well it plays is a large neoprene mat that kind of serves as the corporation, but it's a nameless corporation at this point. And so before I flip this over, imagine a big outline of a building, and you might see a street corner on 2 sides, but then it's literally just like blue carpet or whatever. It's the office floor. It could be any color, I guess, but it's on a grid, a square grid. And then you're taking bits of neoprene that symbolize each of the rooms, and you're setting those in various places on that neoprene, and that's actually making the building, that floor of the building. And so the void, the spaces that end up being the void of what you've placed are the halls. So this is all printed on here right now, but the whole idea is that you'd have pieces of neoprene that are being laid down, and those are covering up, starting to cover up the blue carpet. And after you get enough of them, you've got an entire building layout with all sorts of different rooms. And the halls, again, are the voids created. And so those are where a lot of the action is going to take place, especially for the guards. And so each corporation is going to have a different layout. The corporation is going to have a set of floors, and your you're kind of trying to progress through that corporation. A little bit on more on just some generals with this. Definitely solo. Definitely there's co-op up to 4 currently. We'll be testing like 2v2 strike teams as well. That might be a little bit of a co-op competitive feel to it. But right now we're wanting to make sure that we've got the solo and co-op locked down pretty good. We've got campaign built in is the idea. And it would be based on the corporation that you're facing. As far as like the depth level of this game that we're going for, I would say it's lighter than Bones in terms of like the understanding of each bot, how they work, how they function, but like equally challenging in terms of the strategy to complete and successfully win the game. And there's a major replayability component that I'll get into here. But this is a new kind of game for us because the object isn't like, you're not necessarily dealing with health. It's a lot more about like combat as a last resort. So you're literally trying to sneak into this building, break in, unlocking doors, hiding out in offices, letting guards pass, creating distractions for guards to go check out so that you can get the rest of your team navigated through this floor into the rooms that they're trying to get into, server rooms and all sorts of things. And like the strategy comes from how you manipulate those rooms and how you manipulate the guard routes accordingly. And so there's everything from terminals that you're hacking into that would either allow you to unlock doors or actually spy on like the intercom system or spy on with the security system, different rooms to show your team if there's guards or if there's a loot crate or some type of an equipment crate or other terminals that you can access. And every room has those terminals, or most rooms have terminals that you can access, but once you've accessed them, the corporation is basically ever evolving, learning, identifying the access that you just made to the system and shutting it down. So there's limited opportunities to get information or modify the level, and therefore you have to use those sparingly and at the right times. But yeah, the objectives that you have are also changing. You have a floor objective, and then you have the overall objective, which I think Josh will get into a little bit. But I wanted it to be something where the corporation and the CEO or the boss that you're ending up going up against were kind of one and the same. They're connected. And so for the example, we have Grimace here, but then that corporation hires a security detail, and that detail is drawn at random. So you may go up against a building or a corporation that's known for it increases its threat level way faster than the other corporations. But then the security detail that you drew is Crucible and his security forces, and they have their own personalities as well. So the two of those combining make for a really interesting scenario that's very replayable, even though you're going through kind of a campaign mode, or that's one of the ways to play it. So that's kind of something we're really excited about. We're figuring out. The guards themselves are chip based. They have routes, and those routes are specific to that type of guard. So some guards are going to go on a specific path and then turn around and return. Some guards will roll a die at every single open hallway, and you don't know where they're going to go. They might turn around and go back the other way. They might take a left, keep going forward. There's others that are made to just stay stationed outside a door. And the only way they're going to leave their post is if they hear an alarm triggered elsewhere, and so you're literally kind of luring them away from their post, and so another part of your team can get in. But let's so that just touches on the guards, the rooms, some of the things that we're trying to do with this. Again, it's stacking here. The rooms are sitting on top of the base layer of neoprene, and so it becomes kind of 3D very quickly. We have crates that go in the rooms and that reveal potential equipment. Those are another 3D aspect that we're toying with. And then we'll likely bring in the bots themselves, which will be starting outside the building in different points. Right now we're working with and just seeing chips versus some type of a mini for the heroes themselves. But you're working together. So each bot, at least in this iteration, each bot brings very specific skills. I'd equate it to more complex than like a Hoplo unit, but way less complex than like a Gearlock. What's interesting about these robots is that if this bot brings a specific primary skill that is toss, for instance, that toss, depending on the campaign, might allow a bot to throw a detonator to a teammate, or roll a smoke grenade down the hall, or toss a key card to under a door or something like that. And so toss in and of itself becomes varied in the ways you intend to use it from scenario to scenario. Probably even more important than their primary and secondary skills, these bots are bringing specific actions to the team. So this ties in a little bit with the theme. The idea would be that the humans have basically tried to oppress the robots and put bookends on what they can do. And so every robot is bringing 3 different types of actions: a physical, tactical, utility, and then I guess there's specials as well. But and they have certain amounts of those that they're bringing to the team, and those are right now controlled by chips, or specified by chips. But then your teammate, if they're bringing their bot to the table, they are contributing a set of actions as well. And then you'll have a community bot, which is controlled by any one player. So any player that's on their turn, they can move their own bot, or they can move the community bot. And that gives you a little bit more versatility. If this person, if you really don't want to move your robot and you want to hack a terminal instead, but you have a bunch of physical actions, you don't want those to go to waste. So then you can control the community bot and move that along a path instead of this one, and use your utility or your tactical actions for this robot. So again, it's splitting up those actions appropriately. Your turns and the guards' turns are all intertwined, and so you have to be careful with when you're moving your robots and how you're moving them, how exposed you're leaving them, kind of figuring the guards' routes and when their turns are going to happen. I'll just jump to a couple other things here. The bot's character mats are much more simplified than the idea of bones, but each robot will have their own character mat where they're increasing some of their basic skills. The idea I think we're toying with right now is that we have a primary and secondary skill for each robot, and then a programmable skill that can potentially be unlocked during a game, or chosen through progression within the floor. There's a lot more here, but I'm going to throw it over to Josh to talk a little bit more about like game progression and where that comes into play. If you have your headphones worked out.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Can you
Yes.
guys hear me?
Yep.
All right.
Those look good on you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so special shout out to Shannon for letting me borrow her wired headset real quick. I tried plugging my wireless one in, and it completely dropped my Bluetooth connection, so that was exciting. Anyway, let's talk about progression in this game and a few of the things that make it unique. So one of those things is that, as Josh mentioned, you're progressing through a building. So there's going to be multiple floors of this building, and not only are you completing objectives on each floor, but then you need to make your way to the exit, and it's not really an exit, it's actually like a staircase to the next floor. And as you progress through the building, your threat is going to continue to grow, the types of enemies you're going to encounter are going to change, the room layout is going to change, etc., etc. So, and one of the things that is really cool, I think, about this game, and that we mentioned on the landing page a little bit, is that you're not just being pursued through the building in physical space. You are also being pursued by the we're calling them CEOs for now, but think of a tyrant. Think of how a tyrant flavors a game of Too Many Bones, right? So you have specific special encounters that are going to get shuffled into your deck that might affect the final battle. They might just be thematic in terms of the types of things that tyrant can do, the types of baddies that they normally can bring to the table. Well, the CEO bosses are much the same, in that they're going to be trying to lock you down on the network, as well as have their physical guards lock you down in physical space inside the building. So, and the way that they're going to do that is different for every boss, for every CEO. So those types of things, they're going to be tracking you. They're going to be, modifying the types of actions you're able to take with certain characters. They might be limiting your movement. They might be limiting your access to certain, whether it be the security cameras or whether it be the defense mechanisms that the building has, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this kind of cat and mouse chase both in physical space and in digital space. And I can't say too much more about that right now because we're testing a bunch of different methods for how that might look. But it's this dual threat. And the other thing that does is, you may be, the bots that you bring with with you as a player, they might be really, really tailored to helping your team in the digital space, or they might be really tailored to helping your team in the physical space. And there's a really interesting dynamic between trying to keep the right bots in the right place. You don't want the bot who's really good at operating on the network and operating the security cameras to be going up against a heavily armored, human mech suit. Instead, you want to have them very, very much in the shadows with quick access to terminals and things along those lines. And throughout the entire game, then, you are managing what we're calling the threat level. And with every single action that you take, the threat level is going to be increasing throughout the game. But other things may increase your threat level faster. And for example, if you're engaged with a guard or the security system or what have you, when your turn begins, your threat level is going to increase by 2 instead of 1. If you're spotted, your threat level is going to go up an additional 2 points. If an alarm is triggered, if another guard spots an unconscious guard that you forgot to drag away and put away, your threat level is going to constantly increase. So those types of things are going to dramatically change how the scenario is playing out, both in terms of how much they can track you down and attack you, how much they can lock down your programming actions, what types of things you can do on the network, etc., etc., etc. But once you've accomplished your goal in a given floor, then you're trying to go up to the next floor, and then the state of the network, because really the CEO is the one that's kind of trying to track you on the network. The state of that network, when you get all the way to the top of that building, is going to affect how difficult your final encounter with that CEO is. So you might be a pro at managing everything in the physical space. You may be a tactics master when it comes to avoiding the guards and grabbing the intel that you need and finding the key cards and opening the doors and shutting everything down. But if you are a hack at hacking, get it? Sorry, dad jokes. But if you're terrible at managing your network and you're terrible at managing, everything that's going on in the digital space, you may find yourself in a very, very precarious position when you make it all the way to the top and and fight that final battle, or have that final encounter, so to speak. So yeah, and so Josh also mentioned, so we're looking at a modular board right now, not like Cloudspire with it all interlocking together, but we're looking at a one big mat, on the table that kind of serves as a blank slate of hallways. And then the modularity in the game is going to come from these rooms that you overlay on top of that bigger mat. And what that's going to do is it's just going to create different building layouts. So, your security room may go in different places on every floor with different layouts. And then the space in between becomes your hallways. And those hallways are what, the guards and you will be navigating and sneaking in and out of and trying to hide through. So I think that's kind of the basics of what I was going to cover. Yeah,
that's a good overview. I think the only other thing I'll mention when you get to the final encounter is the story is going to be setting this up that the leaders of these corporations are like literally plugged in to the building itself, and so it's not so much a battle of health as it is a battle of like disconnecting that leader from its equipment, its the building and whatnot. So as you're able to kind of unplug him literally, him or her, we want that to be like the success, the key to success of winning that. And so that could be from a number of different things. That could be getting to specific terminals in that final space, and it could potentially rely just as much on your hacking as on your ability to navigate physically around the space and do what you need to do. So again, I think we want it to be something where even when you're playing a campaign, it's a completely different game each time, because again, the surveillance that the rooms provide, like you don't know what is in a room in any given game until you roll the die that exposes what's in that room. So it might be an NPC, it might be a crate of equipment, it might be a guard or multiple guards that are all in that room for some reason. So the hacking that surveillance is really important, but again, by doing that, you might literally be giving up the ability to unlock a door that your teammate needs to go through, or like hacking the comms to pull someone away from a post. All of those things are, from just sheer gaining XP through a terminal access that'll allow your bot to tap into his secondary skill or their learnable skill. So lots of options, lots of different tactics to come at the same objective, or fulfilling that same objective. And yeah, ultimately, you're trying to get through all of these rooms. As the threat level rises, it's bringing more and more guards to the table. So your threat is basically a timer for the game. And if you let it climb too fast, you're gonna get overwhelmed, and you're basically gonna lose from just that. But there's ways to lower threat, and that also happens through terminals and through other ways in the game. So. The threat meter is kind of that overall thing that's following you throughout the game, and it's setting up the basis for the next floor. And that's another thing that I'll just mention is, at least right now, we're trying to make it so that one game could be played on a single floor, and that would be a nice contained session that gets you to the exit or the stairway. And then if you want to go for a longer session, you could go and play the next floor. But over the course of three floors, it would take you to the top. We're experimenting with game lengths right now. We want to see how that feels before we commit to anything specifically. But that's one of the things we're looking at, is that there's enough to do on a single floor to fill an hour's worth of time. So like we're looking at how we want to do we want to pack that so that you get to the top in one session. I think that would be really good. But then how we don't want every floor to feel too light. So we're figuring all that out, and that's why we're hesitating on saying too much at this point. But that progression feels really cool, because then you just clear that floor, you set up the next one, and it's always, you're trying to reach the top. So I think let's hit some questions. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will mention I don't have the director's notes doc. I don't have access on my computer, so I'm going to rely on you actually to read the questions. But
sounds good.
Yeah, I'll also say, if you're noticing a theme again, this all of our games have been, not all of them, but most of our big box games have been really, really combat focused, and really what we're trying to do in this game is lean away from that a little bit and try something different. So this is very, very unique in terms of what we have done with genres. So let's start hitting some questions.
It reminds me of my references are always video games. Shows you like where I came from, but like an old game called Thief, where it was just as if not more important to like take care of the people that you knocked unconscious and like bring them into a dark alley or whatnot, and like you're as it was to incapacitate that specific guard or whatnot. So that the same is true here. Like if you manage to knock out a guard, and then you take off and you get to the exit with the rest of your team, that guard, because he's left in the open, is going to negatively affect your threat. Like it's going to increase your threat. So not taking the time to like deal with and hide and cover up your tracks will affect the game. It's just kind of a neat.
And I think too that like something that we've also like talked about is like it's not that you're 100% really trying to avoid conflict necessarily, but it's a little bit more interesting and nuanced and almost more mousetrappy, where you're you're trying to lure guards into specific situations where you could take advantage of their vulnerability, as opposed to just going up and like bonking them on the head with a crowbar or something.
It's true. Like the longer you're engaged with guards, the faster your threat is climbing. So it's better if you can avoid them, but there will be times where you'll have conflict, and that's fine too. It's just you have to pick and choose those moments really carefully. Yeah. So, first question is does this game fit into a specific genre of gameplay? Do either of you have any specific gameplay that you would like genre that you would draw from for this?
Is cooperative a genre?
I mean, well, that's that seemed really broad, but yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a pirate game, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Those we've always wanted to make a pirate. I don't know. I mean, I think as I look at it, it definitely has inspiration from stealth elements. I'm seeing in Discord, lots of people posting, people in cardboard boxes from Metal Gear Solid and that kind of thing. I definitely was a huge original Metal Gear Solid fan growing up, and I was joking with my brother earlier today that I was going to hide all sorts of really obscure dialogue references from Metal Gear Solid in this game. I'm not actually going to do that, but I have a shirt that says "A Hind D." What's the Russian gunship doing here? Whatever. Anyway, I think it heavily informed by stealth, but it's still very much a squad tactics game. I mean, and that's really Josh Carlson. That's your bread and butter. Right? I mean, that's what you love. It's still squad tactics. It's just the tactics you're using aren't necessarily to shoot and kill and hack off guys' arms and whatever. Like in a gladiator arena, it's a different way to do it.
Yep. Okay. Next one. Will the robots have beards? That's asked by Anthony. Thank you, Anthony, for that.
I see no reason why we can't make that happen.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if some of these I feel like some of these questions are just trolling.
That doesn't sound like our community.
So I do know that we didn't have that collage of the inspiration images during my segment.
We have that now.
We could pull that up and show that if you wanted, so people could actually see kind of the little bit of the craziness that we were looking at as we're thinking about the look of the game. So this is what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the robot walker guy and the weird bubble, and then like the really the big important image was that robot at the threshold of the cave with the human, and then the idea that we're switching those roles, and that was really the thing that was that kind of got Josh's imagination going, and I thought was really cool. But you can see like the amalgamation of these images, I think, like leading toward the piece that Anthony did. And we will continue to experiment with this as we create the visuals for the game. But I think you kind of looking unlike anything that we've done before.
Another good question: does the game have heist elements? There's like the stuff that I'm working through right now with that would be in campaign mode. There would be more. Like the difference between just playing something through where you're trying to get to the top and take out the corporation versus a campaign would be where you're unlocking aid along the way. So there's likely going to be bots that you need to free or not. But in order to get through the game, it's going to be better if you do. And like those types of elements, breaking in and getting those bots onto your team would be an element to the campaign mode. And then like certainly you're stealing information, you're trying to undermine the network's ability to do what it's doing, and so you're bringing information from one point to another, or you're installing some type of a virus into the servers, and so lots of different aspects to that. But like heist specifically, stealing information or like freeing someone that's captured. That's where my mind goes when I think of that. Complexity rating compared to Cloudspire. I will say at this point I think it seems much. There's not quite as much stat tracking right off the bat when I'm looking and playing through this as there is in Cloudspire. So I would say it's a fair amount less complex from that regard. I think overall strategy, though, there's still a lot that you need to factor in when you're trying to choose which actions to do at which times, and how that's going to overall accomplish the goals that you have. So the challenge, I think, is there and is up to par with Cloudspire, but at a lot less complex level, probably is the way I would answer that right now. Line of sight. So there's a couple things there. The guards have a certain amount of stats, and they have a kind of an awareness stat. They have a speed. And then there's a couple other smaller stats along with their route. But the main three are their route and their awareness. The awareness is basically serves as sight, but also like it's your audible awareness as well. So if a sound is made or an alarm is tripped intentionally or unintentionally within that range, and they don't have some type of specific skill that keeps them in place. There's certain guards that even if their route is like stationary, they don't actually have a route. If they hear something, they'll follow it. Others, or they'll investigate. Others literally won't. That is a guard you have to somehow deal with in a different way. But yeah, that awareness stat is kind of covering both sound and sight range right now.
So right now, is that counted out on squares, or we're not worrying about measuring corner to corner or something like that?
Correct. Nope, it's handled by squares. Thank you, Andrew. So will there be minis? What will they be like? So I mean, I think we're not quite far enough to answer that definitively. We're starting with chips representing the bots and the guards. Right now we're actually working with a smaller size chip than your standard poker chip. Not much smaller, but it's something we are looking at, and that's just to allow enough to happen within this space without the actual board getting unruly. But I mean, we've toyed with. Josh is going to give me. We've toyed with magnets going on the base of a mini, and then potentially like that combining with the chip. So it would the mini would go on over the chip. It would snap to the bottom, and you could reference the couple stats that you have on it, but then move it freely around. It would likely be an add-on. I don't know that we'll package those with the game. It depends on how ambitious the mini option gets. Right now, that's undecided at this point.
I think that sounds cool.
It does sound cool.
We're not. I will say because I've seen a few things in Discord, just like people being like, "No, not minis. No, not a minis game." Blah blah. Blah. We're not interested in making a minis game. Chip Theory is not a minis company. That doesn't mean we won't do minis for games on occasion, because we do have plenty of fans who. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, nobody needs to like panic that we are suddenly that like the Cloudspire Spire minis were some like great. Precursor to us turning into mini theory games or anything. So, yeah.
No, that's definitely not the case. Chips are kind of first and foremost in what we consider and what we use, and then if a mini somehow made it even more inviting or just lended itself to certain people and what their tastes are, we would consider it. So. Will character stats carry from one game or from game to game in campaign mode? That isn't determined yet. I think the simplicity of the bot is such that the advancements that you make within a certain corporation progression are small enough that I would say I'm leaning toward them not carrying to the next corporation. We want that to be. Because we want you to be building your team, and also your skill composition for the corporation that you're up against. So I don't want those avenues that you take to already be defined for the next corporation that you're facing. So likely you'll want to kind of like start fresh again, and so there will be other ways that we link these. Compelling ways that we link them together within the campaign. It will be primarily with story, and then also like what bots you have access to, and when those bots maybe become captured or unavailable for a time. And so like from those ways, I think is what I'm leaning towards right now versus like stat carry forward. Let's see, how many CEO corporations do you anticipate the game will have? Again, loosely, I'm working with 4 different corporations. We've teased those online. We have, I think we have like 9 that we've been just vetting and seeing which is the most compelling. And so we're trying a lot of things, but right now we're working with 4. And again, I think after 4, I think if we roll something else out, we would want the opportunity to change up the rooms a bit, because the rooms, there will be, not every floor is going to use every room, so we want this to be an ever visually we want this to look different as you progress through. And so certain floors will have a giant conference area, and others will have a lot of small offices. Maybe another room or another level will be a fairly open warehouse or whatnot. So like lots of different things there. But after 4 corporations worth, I think we're going to have used these rooms plenty, and we're going to want to have some change up there. So I don't want to add too many different corporations with this set of neoprene. That kind of leads into the next question. Like, is this roguelike? No, right now, no.
There's nothing stopping you from playing that way, I think, if you wanted to punish yourself.
And that's where I was going to go with it. Like, the campaign mode, you'd have your set floor, and those rooms would be set. You'd see where they go, you place them. What goes into those rooms is very roguelike, I guess. So if that's, I don't know if that's fair to say that, but like that is ever changing. It's new every game.
The procedural generation portion of it.
Yes, correct. However, if you were to play a one-off, that is something we would want to provide, where you could literally mix these rooms up and place them out in a certain way that we define for you, and it could be a brand new game every time. That's something we'll definitely look at. If that was, if there was a way to seamlessly work that in, I think that's a real compelling option to consider. So what are we trying to accomplish in that building? So the building has, again, a drawn objective for each floor, and that's something as basic as hack a server, or upload a piece of information to the server, go and disable a very specific NPC, or place some piece of evidence in this location, and then you're getting to that stairwell. So that is a different objective every time. Right now, those are drawn objectives, but in the campaign mode we might have a little bit more to say in how specific that objective is. It might literally be a set objective, but that objective is still needs to be, like, the room has to be discovered, or you have to find the person that you're looking for on that floor, and you just don't know where they are yet. So you have to tap into the surveillance and you have to locate them, and that could change with every game, even in campaign mode. But the ultimate goal is to take out the boss at the top and to basically disable them. Let's see. We have a scenario book like Cloudspire. Will there be art and lore? I mean, that's stuff that we are always we love that kind of stuff. So
yeah. I was just chatting with Ryan about that this afternoon. Like, how deep we want, because we were talking. Again, I mentioned at the top, but I'm so intrigued by the story of this setting.
Yeah.
That it raises so many interesting questions in my mind about this world and how the robots came to the decision to bring humanity back, and how do they feel about it now, and it all depends on how nuanced we want to get. But I think there's definitely a lot of meat on that bone that we could, if it worked out, I'd love to do one of those books.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of questions coming in. I think I'm going to just try to get a couple more answered before we transition. Let's see, are there lost conditions? The biggest one there is your threat level overwhelming you. Like, if all of your bots are captured, there's literally no way for you to escape, and that's when you would lose the game. So you're going to, like, if a certain party member is captured, there will be decisions that you have to make versus, like, how do you boost them? How do you get them back into the team, free them from wherever they've been taken, and then, or do you let them be captured and you then assume basically the role of the community bot, and if that gets captured, then that queues up a lost condition as well. So we're still working through how penalizing we want it to be for you to literally lose one of your bots, but that's still in flux because we're still trying out the different combinations of how many bots we want on this floor working against the guards. Like, we don't want this to get too convoluted, and so the 3-person, 4-person games where you're each controlling one right now is, if it's a 4-person co-op, you're playing with 5 bots. And so you have one bot that's being controlled by everybody, and then you have one of your own. And then that allows us to transition fairly easily to a solo game where you're controlling 2 bots. So lost conditions would be related to threat currently. Is this a story-driven campaign? Yes, like we're working with Ryan on that. Definitely story-driven in each floor. The answer is yes. As far as like within the game, not like Bones, where you're flipping over a card, you're reading an encounter, and then interacting in some way. Terminals, you're going to be faced with choices, and certain terminals give you access to certain things, and that is always a choice there. Like, what thing are you going to hack? You only have a certain amount of time. Do you try to hit surveillance, or do you go ahead and use this opportunity to tap into the comms. So like there will be different things with each terminal, but there won't be a story attached to that. So the story comes, both a before and after, and in the transition between floors and between buildings. Let's see. Oh,
pretty good question at the end of the doc, Josh. I don't
Okay,
know if we feel like we can answer that one.
Yeah. Estimated price point, is that the one?
That's the one. Yeah. Well, if we're almost out of time, that might be something we might.
Yeah, no, I need to make this the last question. There's so many here. We'll try to hit some of these maybe in chat too. But estimated price point, like right now, I'm so tentative on answering that just because of how Trove went.
Right.
And I like thinking of like the sky's the limit, but certainly we're trying for under $100 for this thing. So like that is where we would like to go with it, depending on how much neoprene we fit into this thing, and like if we start adding to it, the chests that reveal dice and whatnot for equipment and whatnot. We'll see, but I think right now that's where we're shooting for is under 100, and I'm not going to say how much under, but yeah, that's
one penny.
That's 1 penny under $100. Yeah, I mean, I know that this is like such a rudimentary example. We don't have a lot of art. We don't have a lot to show, other than what we're just talking about. But that's going to come quick, and as now that Trove is wrapped up, and now that Cloudspire is nearly wrapped up, this is kind of becoming more and more people's main focus. So I hope everyone is excited to see what we come up with and what we are able to complete before the Kickstarter in November. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm going to throw it back, and we'll get into the next segment, which is, I think, story time. So
we're gonna head to story time.
You have to go and get in your chair.
Yeah, I have to go get in my chair.
And I'll just say, a lot of people are saying, I want more details on this, I want more details on this, I want more details on this. This game is still in development, and remember that even when we throw things on Kickstarter, they are still in development as well. So hang tight, more details are coming, but we wanted to whet your palate, let you know the theme, let you know the vibe. There's going to be a lot better details coming soon. So thanks for joining us. We'll hop into chat and answer a few things if we can. But stay tuned for Gearlock Storytime, and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.